Are you good enough?
Magtech is the only pistol or rifle ammo I use on the range, and I recommend them highly. I've seen their manufacturing and quality control firsthand, and it's incredible, which is why it always performs reliably and accurately. They are operating at max capacity and cranking out rounds for you to keep your skills sharp. Pick up some Magtech at your local ammo retailer or get it shipped fast at luckygunner.com.
Hey guys, welcome to Suck Less Saturday. This is Brian Hill from The Complete Combatant. And the question today is, what is good enough? I see people constantly beating themselves up in class and arguments about target size and whether it was a hit. And I always use it, if you hit the target in any meaningful way, that means the bullet actually impacts the target, I call it a hit. We got to talk about what good enough is, though. And this is a state of mind that I have acceptably executed what was asked of me. The perfectionist will always seek more, and therefore discount any success that they've made and the futility of self-condemnation. Those are great words. What it means is you like to beat yourself up. Even when you do well, you like to beat yourself up. One of the most dreaded things I do in class is testing, when I test people. I routinely, after every class, somebody tells me, and they said, boy, that was it for me. I almost didn't want to shoot anymore. Okay? And the reason they feel like that is because they don't know what good enough is. And they don't see their journey, and they don't measure it in a way that's meaningful to their mind. And they don't celebrate their victories. They only see everything as an absolute and utter defeat sometimes. You've really got to change your mind about that. So let's talk about some of these shots here. I shot a bunch of shots on this target, and I'm going to clearly define to me what's good enough. And I'm going to give you some ways to define it for yourself, okay? So if I'm shooting something like this, all right, and everything is inside the square, that is definitely good enough, all right? These are all inside the circle. But this one is just slightly outside the circle. Now, if I had made a call as an instructor, or as you're training, and I said everything must be inside the target, that means line breaks don't count. So anything outside of the target, so effectively it makes this target this big, all right? It can't be that tall. But if I said, as long as it touches the target, it makes the target just slightly bigger. Okay, so I give targets that I think are appropriate size, and as long as your bullet breaks the target, it's good enough. Okay, so let's talk about how the body works. We don't know what's going to happen when a round impacts us. We don't know where it's going. The center of the center may not be perfect, may get some deflection from bone or whatever. So as long as we're shooting the target that is the upper thoracic cavity, the face, or the ocular zone, a line break to me counts for that. Okay, this one has clearly broken the line. Okay, so for some people it would have to be inside. So only the white is good enough. If you define it as such, just know that you're shooting a harder and harder target. Here's one where I shot 3 rounds on a 1-inch square. It barely nicked the line, all right? For me, that's good enough because it's all inside the target, all right? Here's an interesting one. It's half in, half out. So I count line breaks, so that's a hit. If you said it's all the way, it has to be all the way in, then you've made this target slightly smaller, and that one doesn't count, so you have to clearly define it. Some drills are clearly defined like that, okay? Here's one, it's on the black line, and maybe a third of it is outside the black line, okay? In competitive shooting, this would be a line break, and it counts. But you may say they all have to be inside. So clearly define for your mind what you want. But at no time do you get more points for shooting this one than you do this one, because they're inside the target. So both of these fall under good enough, okay? This one falls under good enough, okay? These fall under good enough. These all fall under good enough. And what I simply say to myself is, whatever I ask of myself, I hit the target, and that was good enough to do it. So I want to follow the success of good enough. And if I can just simply continue to repeat that, what happens is the mind settles down, and then the accuracy increases. But as the tension increases, and you say, that's a miss, I'm not doing it right, I'm missing, then you get more tense, and what I see is missing goes way up. So I want you to embrace this idea of good enough. Perfection is always the enemy of good. It always will be. And as human beings, we simply can't be perfect. Occasionally we have moments of greatness, maybe a moment of perfection, but they're fleeting at best. What I want to be is 90% of the time, I want to be good enough. Okay? And what I also want to pay attention to is when I shoot this one right here, I will look at the context of the drill. So if I was shooting very quickly on a transition and I had to engage multiple people and I hit that, I may not come back and make that up in USPSA because it wouldn't be worth it time-wise. But if I was doing it in real life, I might want to move that round in, although that's the size of my chest, so that may be good enough too. The context drives the shooting, okay? If you want every round to touch each other, you got to take 3 things into account. Number 1 is your skill and ability as a shooter. Number 2 is your gun's ability to be that precise. And remember, the more precise a gun gets, the more problematic it becomes. It tends to malfunction because it has to have tighter tolerances. And then you have to buy the very best ammo. You can buy nothing but the very best ammo that's geared to being loaded at such a rate that it's highly perfected. In a long range game, we look at standard deviation, and that's what's the differences between the speeds between it, so we know how the round's going to react. Even in mechanical devices, perfection is not there. So take it out of your mind. Be good enough and chase success. Don't relish failure. Take the victory and say that was good enough. And if you don't think the drill's hard enough, then change it. Change it. Say it has to be clearly inside the lines, all right? Or I can only shoot 1-inch squares. Change the drill, but realize you're creating a preference of always perfection. And the problem is this guy won't tolerate quick shooting. This one needs quick shooting. This one needs some stillness, all right? So probably there's a difference of 5 or 6 times at relative time level. So we have to say, what is my goal as a self-defender? Well, it is to get the gun out, fire first round hits, and begin to change the fight, and be able to contextually follow up. Do I need to shoot more, or do I need to change task? Okay? We're trying to build context, and good enough will be calling the shots as they come in. Okay, guys? Be kind to yourself, please. Beating yourself up doesn't work. And this is hard enough as it is. We are always chasing the challenge. So give yourself some grace, understand your goals, have them clearly in your mind, immediately feed them back with what was good enough or not. Even if they're all in there, don't say they should all be in the center. If that was the goal, then you have to go back to a much smaller target, okay? And then you'll notice that the time will increase. So in the same way, say to yourself, that was good enough. And I'd like to see you celebrate occasionally, all right? I see the celebrations when you miss. They look like this. What's the celebration look like when you do well? I know that bothers some of you, but listen, if you want to do something for a long time and you want to enjoy it, you better celebrate your successes so that you don't burn out. All right, there's your dad moment with Brian, okay? Coaching moment. This is important stuff though, and I hope it'll help you, and I hope as you approach your drills, you'll do this. All right, Active Self-Protection Extra, you know what to do. Hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, follow up, change those notifications to all so you get all the goodness coming out of here. If you have any questions, leave them for us. And I'm Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant, and as always, measure, refine, and perform.